Hey, mushroom lovers. I am here with Adam from Texas Fungus. And Adam, welcome to the summit.
Thanks for having me, Michael. It's awesome to be here.
And Adam, you were actually one of the only speakers that was in last year's summit as well as this year's summit. And a lot has changed for you. So you're going to kind of share a little bit about that and kind of your history. And then we're going to dive into marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've grown by leaps and bounds and then had to reinvent ourselves completely over the last 7 months. So yeah, a little bit's changed since the last summit.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit, give folks a little bit of your background. How did you get into mushroom farming?
Uh the really short version is I met a guy on Facebook that knew how to grow mushrooms and I'd always wanted to. And so I we met up and started working together. The slightly longer version is that I've been involved in ag for probably the last 8 to 10 years, mostly doing hydroponics and aquaponics, but I always wanted to do mushrooms. It just never really worked out. When I met Jordan, it just kind of clicked and he and I got along better than I think either of us actually expected to. And we hatched this crazy idea of taking an old auto body repair shop and turning it into an urban mushroom farm. So we opened up this space January of 2019, just under 2 years ago, and yeah, we've been growing ever since. So it's been crazy, but it's been a lot of
Mhm.
fun.
Well, I mean, the cool thing is that you're both now employed by the business, man. I think you said one time you're barely employed, but at least you are employed.
It I get a check. It's not as big as anybody wants, but I get a check every month, and I don't have another job. Actually, whether no matter what you want to say, Jordan and I are solely employed by the farm, and it's paid our living expenses for the last year and a half. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's we are not farmers that are surviving because of quote unquote off farm income. So that's to me
Yeah.
that's a big win.
Well, or government subsidies.
This is true.
I just saw a newsletter or an article that was basically saying for the 2020 corn crop, the projection is that every acre with the government subsidies of $50 to $60 an acre will still have a net loss of $7 an acre. And so obviously when you're thinking about that, oh, well, that $7 is when you multiply that by 1,000 acres or 10,000 acres, that now becomes $7,000 or $70,000. And
Yeah.
obviously you have all your other expenses on top of that. So, what it comes down to be is 90%, 95% of our farmers are losing money in the 2020 year. And it's great to see someone who's, been profitable, not, from the right at the start, but very quickly after you started to now be profitable and have weathered a very, tumultuous 2020 like we all have.
Yeah. And I mean, there's the old joke of how do you make a farmer a millionaire? You start them
Mhm.
off with 2 million. We've managed to build this farm on, a song and a dream, as Jordan says. We put barely any capital into the farm because neither of us had any capital to speak
Mhm.
of to start with, and we've put a whole lot of sweat equity into it. So we've scrimped, we've saved, we've borrowed, we've repurposed whatever we could find, and we're finally at that point where we're able to build the things that we're building now the right way so that we
Mhm.
can build them once and they're never going to have to be rebuilt. Over the last 7 months, we've put a few more band-aids on. We've taken band-aids off of a few things and rebuilt them the way that they should have been built the first time if we'd had the money and or the time.
Mhm.
Um, but this year, even with all of the COVID issues and shutdowns and everything else, we've managed to put probably $30,000 of our revenue from the farm into our upgrades. We're gonna end the year more than likely darn near break even, on paper.
Yeah.
But when you consider that we've done the last 2 years basically with no debt, no credit cards, no outside funding, no bank loans, and we're going to go into 2021 with no debt and everything is paid for and moving forward, and we're going to be set to produce 600 to 800 pounds a week by the end of this year.
Yeah. Well,
So
that is awesome. Well, Adam, why don't you walk us through then some of this, kind of share the journey, and then we'll dive in at the end. I know I wanted you to focus on kind of like how you've been selling the mushrooms, because that's something that people are always like, okay, I can grow something, but how do I sell it? So we'll get into that at the end. But first, we want to just walk through the entire journey of kind of like the different stages you've built as you've scaled.
yeah, absolutely. So the stages of the farm, we started from basically nothing. And this first picture is our empty little warehouse when we took it over in January of 2019. It was a 2,000 square foot double door warehouse. No heat, no AC, no ventilation. And really, it was 3 walls, 2 doors, and a roof. It used to be an old auto body repair shop. We came in and we were so excited to have signed a lease and been able to actually start business. We had no idea what we weren't aware of and what we were getting ourselves into. We thought that our first tent would be able to produce, 500-600 pounds a week, totally everything perfect. So we started off with a upscaled Martha tent. Martha tents are pretty much the common way for most hobbyists to grow in their house when they get up to a certain size. So we made one that was 10 foot wide, 8 foot tall, and 20 feet long out of PVC pipe. And then we covered it with dual film plastic, black on the outside, white on the inside. And we thought we were going to be just absolutely ripping it. Turns out that in Texas, when it hits 105 degrees outside, our warehouse hit about 130 degrees. Okay. So that single layer of plastic really didn't keep it cold enough for the mushrooms. And we didn't know that because we started in January when Texas is actually cold. But we got that up, and then we started working on our next big construct, which was our colonization room and such. But inside that fruiting room, we had some basic racks, and we top fruited everything. So we just put it on the rack and let the mushrooms grow straight up, like you see in those 2 pictures. We were still growing we were doing 80 to 100 pounds a week. At that point, we were only making about 60 bags a week because it was just me and Jordan. And actually at that time, I was still working as a high school teacher. Yep. So I was only here 20 to 25 hours at the end of the day, 5 days a week. And Jordan was here all day. But we were doing pretty good. We wanted to get bigger, and we had restaurants that wanted to buy from us. So we decided to put up a bigger colonization room. The first iteration of this room was 16 by 16. And we figured, you know what? It's cold. We don't need to really put insulation in this. We don't need to worry about putting an AC unit in it or anything. It'll be fine. Yeah, that lasted about 3 months. But we thought we were really cool. In that picture on the very left, where that extension cord is hanging up, yep. That's our lab. And we actually ran with that lab for probably 16 months. Just single layer polyfilm plastic on a 2x4 frame. We had our flow hoods in there and such. And you want to talk about DIY? Well, that was us. That we did everything ourselves. And we learned a lot of lessons as to why you shouldn't do things yourself. This pile of beauty was walk-in panels that we found on a farm locally. They were very dirty, very old, and they didn't fit together. But with a little ingenuity, we turned that pile into this, which is an 8x8, 6 foot tall walk-in. We had to fabricate a door out of it, but that's the walk-in that we're currently using. And actually that picture was taken before we cut the hole in the side for the AC and the CoolBot. But we use that to date, and it looks pretty much like this every Monday, if not maybe a little bit more full. Each one of those crates, depending on what mushrooms are in them, they'll hold anywhere from 10 to 12 pounds if they're oysters, up to 20 to 25 pounds if it's lion's mane. So
now, Adam, on those crates, do you just stick the mushrooms directly in those, or do you wrap them in a plastic? Or
so when they're stacked like that, there's enough ventilation to keep them from building up moisture, but not so much that they're going to get soggy or really spoil. So We generally only put paper on the very top crate to prevent the water loss from that. Yeah, our walk-in, it can hold about 400 pounds, 450 pounds in these crates and such. And our whole business model, especially when we started and we were dealing entirely with restaurants, was that product would be in our cooler for no more than 24 to 48 hours. We still work to that. We try to stick to that as much as possible. But last week we harvested over 500 pounds of mushrooms. And so we've got some that's in the cooler that's 4 or 5 days old that'll go out actually tomorrow with orders, but the rest will go out between now and Saturday, Sunday when we do farmers markets. So our first real construction that we did right, and we still made plenty of mistakes when we built this, but this was our new fruiting room. So we went from that black plastic, which you can see on the right side of this image. That's our jerry-rigged AC units with filters on them so that we can pump cold air into the black plastic fruiting tent and try to keep it cold enough for the mushrooms to grow in April 2019 when temperatures were already starting to hit high 80s, low 90s. So the fruiting room we built was 10 by 20, 8-foot ceilings. From the vantage point you're looking right through what is the door down into the room. We lined that with a white plastic. It's called Ultra Scrim. And I used to use it all the time with aquaponics to build our waterproof beds and troughs. It's a great material. It's just, it comes in sheets that are 6 to 8 foot wide, and they are 100 feet long. So it's kind of a pain when you try to put it on a vertical or horizontal surface like the roof. Okay. But we managed it and it worked.
And how do you attach that?
We just did staples, and then we went back over it with some water-resistant duct tape, frog tape, and then later we went back over that, or we took the tape off and we went over with some white Flex Seal paint to create a waterproof seal over the staples so they didn't rust.
Gotcha.
But when we built this room, we did some math, and originally we were going to do the shelves like we had in the first room, where we just top fruited everything, just run the bags out horizontally and then top fruit it. But after doing some math and talking to a couple other commercial growers, we opted to go with these racks that are 1 bag deep instead of the 4 bags that we had before. And they're right up against the wall. So these racks, we side fruit everything. We load the blocks on, and then we cut a hole or cut an X on the side of the bag and let the mushrooms come outward. So we started with this design where we just had racks on 2 walls, because that was what we needed right then to get the blocks out of the black plastic room and into this room. And that lasted for about a week. We had our humidifier in there, and the blocks were coming out really, really good. We were getting some great flushes, but we realized that we didn't have enough room. So we accelerated our timetable a little bit, and even though we were getting some good flushes, we decided that we needed to put up the next set of blocks or next set of racks as quickly as possible. So we did that, and at that point, the room with those 3 walls and a little bit on the other end, we were able to hit about 380 blocks in there, and we grow off of 12-pound blocks. Yep. So we were doing pretty good. But within a month, we had outsold that production, and we were producing more blocks. And we decided, much to my partner's dismay, we needed to cut some more holes and build some more racks. So we decided to build a set of racks in the center of the room that brings our total up over 500 bags. So it's a lot of mushrooms, it's a lot of space, and one of the lessons that we learned was, next time, don't put racks in the middle of the room. Just airflow and humidity and cleaning, and when the mushrooms grow out both sides and you try to roll a cart down that aisle, there's just not enough room, and it's a pain. So it works, but you always do it better than the second time you build something. So that's where we're headed.
Gotcha. Very cool.
So speaking of upgrades, we had to upgrade our sterilizer. When we started last year, or in 2019, we were using an 85-gallon Bubba's Barrel sterilizer, doing 30 12-pound bags a cycle. And we got to the point where we were running that barrel 5 days a week, doing 30 bags a day, making a batch, inoculating a batch, shaking a batch. It just, every day it was the same sequence. Plus moving blocks around the farm, harvesting, doing deliveries. It was a nightmare. So we found this old double door refrigerator. Compressor didn't work. We stripped all of that off and such, and we gutted it, and we turned it into a steam sterilizer. This guy will hold 105 12-pound bags. And yeah, we're at the point right now where we run it twice a week, and actually we're getting ready to retire this guy and upgrade again and go to one that'll do about 50% more than this guy. So we'll be up to about 300 blocks a week, give or take.
So Adam, on this one right here, how are you heating it with steam? Are you using like a boiler to pump steam into this?
Yeah, so we're using a 9 kilowatt sauna steam generator. And then you can't see it in this photo. We didn't have it hooked up yet, but it's actually off to the left of where this is. And we pipe the steam in to the very back bottom of the right side. So let's see, right about here, if you can see the pointer on the screen.
Yep.
So right about there is where the steam comes in, and then it all will exhaust out of the very top right through here. So
Gotcha. And the doors, when the doors are on, they have these seals that hold the steam in.
Right. Yeah, we actually, and so, okay, here's one of the things that we learned. I would not recommend that anybody build a steam box out of a refrigerator.
Okay.
The reason for that is the foam insulation that they use to keep the cool in, to keep the heat out, as a refrigerator, it's not meant to experience high temperatures. And when it does, it expands. So part of the reason we're retiring this guy is that the steam over the last 7 months that we've been using it has warped the entire frame, buckled the doors and everything else, and the doors don't fit closed anymore. Pieces have busted off, and we now have to use ratchet straps and such just to hold the doors mostly closed. And it went from holding temperature and getting the temperature very, very fast and working great to the efficiency is definitely diminishing right now. So with the new box, we're going to use rock wool insulation. I'm super excited. I found that FRP panels can actually handle up to 212 degrees temperature.
Oh, wow.
So we're just going to FRP the inside, and it's going to be nice and simple and easy. So I'm sure I'll make some mistakes, but it'll be better than what we got. So
yeah. And what are you going to make the frame out of? Is it going to be out of wood with rock?
Yeah, we're going to do pressure treated lumber and insulate that with mineral wool, rock wool.
Yeah.
So that we should get some great insulative factor on that, and then it'll be nice and smooth and easy to clean with the FRP panels. So that'll be great. Very cool. We've done a bunch of other things. We've built a new lab. We upgraded our AC units and cooling and this and that, and we've gone through 4 different iterations on humidity systems, but probably what I'm most happy about is what we're building right now, which is our second fruiting room, which is, this one's going to be built right. This is using insulated walk-in cooler panels for all the walls, for the roof. These ones that are, where's my pointer? There it is. These ones that are here, these are actually the roof. Those are 17 foot long. So they're
brand new.
They are. We got a heck of a deal on them. They're usually about $400 or $500 a piece, brand new, and we got them for like $200.
Nice.
For all 3 of them.
Nice.
So yeah, we got a heck of a deal. If we could have gotten more, I probably would have, but he only had the 3, so we made it work. Yeah. So we've gotten the roof on and the walls on, and we're drying it in. We actually have a true walk-in door to go in and out, and then this space up here is going to be our air exchange and air intakes. So there's that. But like I said before, we're to the point where we know enough of the wrong things to do because we did enough of those that
Yeah.
we know how to do it right, at least for our climate. That's
Yeah.
one thing about mushroom farming is, yeah, it's everybody knows that the mushrooms need to be at this temperature and this humidity and so and such for each species. But when you grow in Texas versus Ohio versus Michigan versus British Columbia, there's completely different environmental conditions that you have to do. If you're in Florida, you're going to be looking at a completely different way of keeping your room cool and keeping the humidity right and such than if you're in Maine. And
Yeah.
so for where we are in Texas, we think, at least at this point, that we know how to do all of this in the right way to really promote consistency. And that's, as a farm that sells primarily to restaurants, that's the thing that we need more than anything else is consistency. So this is what we're producing now. I mean, we're growing 12 different types of mushrooms a week. We're doing specialty boxes. We're doing oyster boxes, and our chefs can't get enough of it. They absolutely just sing our praises every chance they can. And yeah, I mean, we're having a blast with it. So that's my partner holding that's a BAM box in his hands, and then a chef's mix box, that black crate that's on the ground. That's got coral tooth, maitake, king trumpet, piapinos, blue oysters, gold oysters, elm, Italian, chestnut mushrooms, a little bit of everything in there.
Very cool.
In terms of what we've done and how we've grown, when we started in 2019, we were doing 90%, 95% of our business to restaurants. We were doing farmers markets really because we'd have a little bit of mushroom left over, and because the lettuce farm that I also was doing at the time already had paid up for the booths, so we figured, why not? Let's go out.
Yeah.
So this is one of the first booths that we did, and you can see that we had absolutely no idea how to do an effective farmers market booth. We were 100% of the idea that, yeah, we've got great mushrooms, they'll sell themselves. We brought bulk mushrooms out to market. We had a scale, and we'd weigh out what people wanted there. And we did all right. We sold out most days, but we also, most days, they weren't like this in the photo, and we were only bringing out, 20 pounds, 30 pounds. Well, 15 or 20 pounds. This photo is probably close to 35 or 40 pounds with all that lion's mane. And when we first started, we couldn't give lion's mane away. It was hilarious. We couldn't give it away. People would look at it and say, "Oh, that looks like cauliflower," and they walk away.
That tastes like lobster.
It does. And so what we did was we ended up actually giving a quarter pound or more of lion's mane anytime somebody came by and bought oysters. Here, try this. It's on us. And then after doing that for a couple of months, it became our biggest seller, and it actually helped us through the summer and actually stay alive. But I mean, just looking at this photo, that's me and my son there, but we didn't have boxes. We had recycled cardboard boxes that we were scavenging so we could put mushrooms into them. We did brown paper sacks. I mean, we didn't know what we didn't know. And, now almost 2 years later, or a year and a half from this photo, this is what our booth looked like at the Dallas Farmers Market last Saturday. So on November 7th.
All right. So walk us through what's on the table there.
So with COVID, all of the markets in our area have required us to do prepackaged items. So we went to the boxes not because we wanted to, really, although we probably would have done it eventually, but we were forced to because we were told we couldn't sell in bulk the way we had been selling. But we've got oysters, chestnut, king trumpets, shiitake, maitake, coral tooth. There should be some lion's mane out there. I don't see it right now, but we've also got value-added products. We've got mushroom jerky. We've got mushroom stock. We've got 3 of our 5 different medicinal tinctures there on the table yesterday or on Saturday. We've got some of our grow kits. And we've really tried to focus on how we can get how we can make it super easy for the consumer to not only buy our mushrooms, but to utilize our mushrooms. So I've redone the website, and we have an entire page devoted to recipes. We started a free email series that I use as a list builder activity, but you sign up for this on the website and it's a 10-day email series where you get a different recipe every day for 10 days. Every recipe is about a different mushroom that we grow. So now I'm starting to build a list. We're starting to market to that list specifically. We're partnering with chefs. One of the restaurants in town that we'd been selling mushrooms to, we had a lot of mushrooms left over that weren't selling earlier this summer earlier in the pandemic and such. So we talked to him and we're like, hey, could you make mushroom jerky if we gave you a bunch of mushrooms? So he did some R&D and he came up with a recipe for a vegan oyster mushroom jerky. And so it sells out as soon as we put it on the table. We had 20 bags, I think, this weekend. And we sold all 20 on Saturday. I didn't even have any to bring to market on Sunday. Profound Foods is one of the food hubs that we work with. And they've expanded into, they have a spinoff called Profound Kitchen right now. And so Profound Kitchen does meal kits and value-added products using farmer produce that farms that are in the food hub. So we've partnered with them, and they're using our mushrooms to make mushroom stock, and it's low sodium. And this is the one that's on the booth right there in that picture. That's just in a regular quart jar, but the next batch is actually going to be jarred in mason jars, and it's going to be shelf stable, so it doesn't have to be refrigerated.
Very cool.
So that's going to be a great product. So for risotto, for soups, it's best tasting mushroom stock I've ever had, and not just because it's my mushrooms. It truly is just full body because it uses all of our mushrooms.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little, Adam. These value-added products, are you taking what you can't sell, or are you taking the stuff that's not pretty enough? How are you just taking all your seconds?
Exactly. So oyster mushrooms have a shelf life of probably for the wholesale side, oyster mushrooms probably have a 3 to 4 day, maybe 5, really 3 to 4 day lifespan before they are really not good enough to go to a restaurant, Okay. So if they last in our cooler for that long, we can't really sell them. So we send them to Donnie at his restaurant to turn into jerky, or we dehydrate them and turn them into powder. And that's one of the other things that we're working with Profound Kitchen to do is we're going to do mushroom salts and seasonings and dried powders and soup mixes and things like that. And all of those mushrooms that otherwise would just be compost, they're now turning into a shelf-stable, saleable product. The maitake, the lion's mane, the reishi extracts that we have, we've taken mushrooms that we couldn't sell otherwise, dehydrated them, powdered them, and we're turning those into our tinctures. So that's really one of the things that I've been focusing on for the last few months is how we can create partnerships with local restaurants, local chefs, local entities to be able to take something that we can't directly sell or use for revenue and turn that into something that we can. So yeah.
I like the other thing is that you very distinctively branded yourself from the beginning with a great logo too.
Yeah, that one I can't take any credit for. That is totally Jordan. He came up with the Texas Fungus and that logo, and I absolutely love it. And we're non-apologetic about the fact that we grow the best damn mushrooms in Texas. That's a hashtag that we use almost on every social media post and such.
Yeah.
That mushroom box that Jordan was holding in that photo that I showed earlier, we call that the BAM box, the badass mushroom box.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're not apologetic about the fact that we think we have the best stuff around, and so far our chefs are they seem to be pretty much in agreement with us.
Yeah.
So we like to provide the best quality at a price that is worthy of the product that you're receiving. So we are not the cheapest mushroom grower in the area, and we don't want to be. So we found a good place, and our customers are pretty appreciative of it from what they've said and the feedback we've gotten.
So you also are now starting to see people in your area pop up as competition, but you're still being able to outcompete them because of the quality.
So yes. So the pandemic has really been interesting. Back in January, we were watching two specific farms, and they weren't direct competition, but they were moving in that direction. And we were just keeping an eye on them and such. And with everything that's happened with the pandemic, neither one of them is really on our radar anymore. There is now two other farms that have come up in the last couple months that are growing, and they're expanding. But at this point, we are far enough ahead in our productive capability and our diversity and such.
Yeah.
We're not really concerned in the same way. I mean, end of the day, the reality is there's more than 7 million people in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. According to any restaurant lover, food lover in the nation, Dallas has one of the most vibrant foodie economies and such of any city in the country. So there could be another 5 or 6 farms, honestly, and we probably would not really run into competition with each other. That being said, we have plans for next year that, you know, we're looking at potentially expanding into a few more farmers markets. We did 7 this year, and we're looking at doing more next year. We're looking at getting into a lot more restaurants and things like that. But it's just a matter of consistency. As long as we can, that's our big thing is that we don't ever want to turn a chef down because, we don't have that this week. Sorry. You know, because the chef, if we turn a chef down this week, the likelihood that they're going to come back and ask if we have it next week, that's minimal. So we live and die by consistency. If we can't grow it week in, week out, 12 months out of the year, then we're not really going to offer it as a regular item. Yeah. So let's see. At farmers markets, we've really tried to up our visual game, both telling people what the mushrooms are, what they look like, and how to use them and such. And like I said, we went from doing 95% of our sales to restaurants in 2019 and January, February of 2020. And then when COVID happened and Dallas shut down all restaurants to indoor dining, we lost 95% of our revenue stream in a 6-day period. Every restaurant closed. So we instantly, and luckily it was the right time of year that farmers markets were starting to open. So we instantly pivoted and got into farmers markets. And like I just said, we were in 6 or 7 markets this year. So we had to reinvent ourselves. We had to figure out how to sell all of our mushrooms to the average consumer rather than a chef. And it was a completely different way of pitching mushrooms. Yeah. And selling by the half pound is a very different thing than selling 10-pound crates. So it was a challenge. We've made partnerships with several local grocery stores that have opened up in the midst of the pandemic and such. So those have been good partnerships. We've worked with foragers and foraging groups to be able to bring in things like chanterelles, morels, even lobster mushrooms, and a few others. We've created new products on our own. This one on the left we call it a mixed specialty box, and it's about a 1/4 pound of 4 different types of mushrooms. Yeah. And it allows our customers to try a bunch of different things, see what they like, they don't like, and they like the variety. We've found that our mixed oyster boxes always sell better than a single color of oyster, that the mixed specialty boxes always sell better than the individual specialties. So little things like that. Our packaging, while I admit it looks great, it's an absolute pain because we have to hand stamp every single box.
Yeah.
And we're
And
going
hand
to
make all those boxes. Those boxes aren't easy to assemble.
no. Now these I actually did right. I ordered the pre-folds. So all you have to do is expand them outward and they're already glued together. So that's really nice. But hand stamping, we're doing over 250 of those white boxes every week. We're doing about 50 of the brown boxes every week. So it's a pain, but it works, and it's what's kept us alive. We saw a really big demand for people wanting to do grow your own mushroom kits and actually doing your own. So we launched a couple of different types, and we tried selling a mail order. You helped us with that earlier this summer, Michael, and that was amazing. But the reality is that right now we're doing about 12 or 15 a week, and we're selling every kit that we produce. And we're making some plans to do some more for the holiday season. But yeah, kits are a good seller, and they're a fun project, especially with all the kids home and looking for science projects and other learning activities. Parents loved that. And I love farmers market. It's a lot of fun seeing all the people developing relationships with regular customers, but it's not always sunshine and roses. We had a situation at a market where I was earlier this summer. We had a rain bomb come through, which was about 3 inches of rain falling in a little less than 45 minutes. A customer and I got to hold the tent down from flying away for that 45 minutes. And I got to watch as several of the other vendors at my market lost their tent and all of their products. So it's got its own challenges, not to mention the fact that the days are very long, very hot during the middle of summer, and it drains you a lot.
Yeah.
We had chefs come by, and we've made some great relationships with restaurants and chefs that we met through the farmers market. So that was always fun when that happened. This is one of my favorite memories from farmers market this summer. Cafe Momentum was a restaurant that we started working with from day one. They've been there supporting us since we started in January of 19. But they work with youth from the juvenile detention system. They train them in front of the house skills, back of house skills, and all of that. So the guys from Momentum brought a bunch of their kids out to the farmers market to see where their food comes from, because Momentum sources as much as they can from local farmers. So they came out and saw us at farmers market. They gave me one of their shirts, and it was really fun and seeing the kids outside of the kitchen for a few hours. And then we did some events with, other groups in town. Chefs for Farmers in Dallas does a big thing partnering local farms with restaurants and such. So we worked with a couple different chefs, and they did special entrees using featured items. So Abraham did a wild mushroom as epizole, if I remember correctly, and then Andrea did a great little one with beef and our mushrooms and some herbs and such. And we've met some great chefs that love our mushrooms, and we started working with a couple local food hubs. But we've had to reinvent ourselves through the pandemic. So one revenue stream wasn't enough. We didn't feel comfortable having the few restaurants we did and farmers markets. So we started offering local classes, teaching people how to grow mushrooms using low energy, simple techniques, growing on straw.
Yep.
We taught them how to do a cold pasteurization, the boiling, how to actually drill the holes in a 5-gallon bucket, what you have to do step by step to actually grow mushrooms at home. And we ended up actually having, since then, we've had 4 or 5 people from our classes come back and buy spawn from us about once a month so that they can actually keep growing their own mushrooms
Uh-huh.
on their own. And it's fun seeing their pictures and hearing their stories. Once again,
Yeah.
it's the relationships that really kind of get it going. So all in all, this is Jordan in our fruiting room in January, early February of 2019. We've come so far from here with our 60 bags a week that we were doing to this where we are now, which is 500 bags in a fruiting room, pulling out 400 500 pounds of mushrooms a week. It's a blast. So I've got a couple other photos of some of the yields we've gotten and such. Those gold oysters that Jordan's holding, that's 2 individual flushes from 2 bags. That elm oyster that I'm holding in that photo is about 8 inches across.
Yeah.
And then I've got a couple videos here just of the mushrooms going through. So let's see if I can get this to play. So this is just showing our wall of lion's mane. And then back into the corner, we got golds, coral tooths, those are elms, and then some of our blue oysters.
Wow.
Oh, that's the same video. Let's see. Yeah.
Look at all those.
I gotta say, coming into the grow room on Monday mornings, when we've done minimal harvesting over the weekend and such, it's always such a blast to walk in, seeing everything just completely grown out.
Yeah, that is really cool.
And then that's kind of just where we are today. So it's been a journey. It truly has, but I think we're going to come out of this 2020 pandemic situation with a stronger business model and much greater partnerships with our community, with our chefs, with our customers, our clients, and a better understanding of our place in the local food system. So it's been a good year, all things considered.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for this. This was fascinating. First, to kind of see the progression from the very, very start of your grow rooms and the plastic, kind of like what do they used to call it? Was it like Tinker Toys, or I don't know? That's what kind of felt like, those plastic connectors.
Yeah.
And then just look at your marketing too, because it's been chefs, it's been farmers markets, and now you're expanding into the partnerships for the value added, which is incredibly interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something that so many people need to get started on. It's something I'm definitely thinking about when we're cranking out, hundreds of pounds a week. How do we take those, and who do we connect with? So that's really great for you to share that. What would you say for someone who's looking to get started with mushrooms? What kind of advice would you give them?
If you're in it for the money, don't do it. I mean, and that's the same thing I'd say to anybody who's interested in farming, period. If you want to do it for money, then there are 100 other things you can do that are easier, quicker, and less stressful. Mushroom growing there's a bunch of technique to it, and there's a bunch of specific knowledge that you need, but it's artistry as much as it is technique. It's farming. Anybody who says that if you're not grown in soil, then you're not a farmer, that's not true. We are working with the fungus, with the fungi to create a product together. We've got to provide the right environment and the right situation for them, and then that gives them the opportunity to grow. So be in it for the joy of watching things grow and such, and not in it for the money, but don't ever think that you know everything. We've been smacked in the head and such so many times this year when we thought we knew what we needed to do or how it needed to be done, or, well, somebody else did it this way, so let's just copy what they did and we'll be good. No, not so much. You know, the first time it hit 110 degrees outside in August, and it was 140 inside our warehouse, you know, and our air conditioners are pulling air from the top of the warehouse, trying to then cool that to blow into our fruiting room. Well, we're trying to keep the fruiting room at 70 degrees, 65 degrees, and an air conditioner is going to drop it 20 degrees. So we were blowing 100-degree air into our fruiting room, and we couldn't figure out why our mushrooms looked like crap.
Yeah.
So then we had to DIY and develop a new idea and come up with something on the fly that would work. So if you want to get into mushroom farming, be humble, read everything you can, ask questions, ask for help, and then be willing to think out of the box and come up with your own solutions, because you're going to have to be a MacGyver. You're going to have to create solutions for something that hasn't ever existed, because every farm is going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. I mean, just some of the questions you've asked us, Michael, about your room. I know what I would do in Texas for it, but the climate in Ohio is completely different. And so there's things like that. Also, you're doing your mushroom room in conjunction with everything else that you're doing. So your workflow and your time layout and your efficiencies that you're going to have for that are different than us. So what works for us wouldn't necessarily translate into your farm for success. So always be willing to listen to somebody else's advice with that grain of salt of, is what they're saying really going to work for me?
Well, that was great, Adam. Thank you again so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise on all things mushrooms.
Absolutely. Like I said, it was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.